Life is a lot like jazz. It's best when you improvise. Moreover, jazz is the art of a collective improvisation, a wondrous conversation between musical notes and visual expressions. Jazz is constantly changing. As Ornette Coleman noticed once, jazz is the only music in which the same notes can be played night after night, but differently each time.
Still, jazz is characterized by its own rich traditions and laws. Since its beginning, jazz has expressed the feelings, dreams, and hopes of all Americans.
People who created jazz had come from various places and belonged to different social strata. New Orleans gathered people from all over the world. Jazz does not belong to one race or culture, it's a gift that America gave the world.
Jazz was born in America through millions of meetings between the rich and the poor, the happy and the unfortunate, men and women, between old Africa and good old Europe. All this could happen only in the young New World. After the end of the Spanish-American War, there appeared many used musical instruments. As New Orleans was one of the closest to Cuban-American ports, many American troops were sent home from here. All stores were full of instruments which cost nothing, and even poverty-stricken people could buy one and try playing it.
Jazz is the fusion product of white and black cultures, and the basic jazz components are European harmony, Euro-African melody, and African rhythm.
Valentin Parnakh, a poet, writer, and the first Soviet jazzman, became the true American-Russian jazz guide. Not being a musician, Parnakh became a jazz pioneer. When living in Paris, he saw American jazz bands for the first time. It changed his life completely. He decided to found something of the kind in Russia. As Parnakh was short of money, he borrowed a solid sum to buy some musical equipment for his future band.
Then, in summer of 1922, he arrived in Moscow with a suitcase full of instruments and IPs, one of which was original Dixieland Jazz Band. The first performance took place on the 1st of October. Nobody knew how to use the drum set. The drummer was dressed as Pierrot and played the snare and the cymbals separately. Valentin was playing the rattles. Of course, he had no idea of improvisation then.
Later, different American bands started visiting the USSR. Leonid Utesov was the face of Soviet jazz. He dreamt of assimilating jazz with Soviet mainstream. His music band became the symbol of Soviet time.
Что такое движется там по реке, белым дымом играет и блещет металлом на солнце.
Still, there was one more person whose name gradually became the symbol of American jazz and America itself. In 1955, radio audience firstly heard Willis Conover's voice. His program, Jazz Hour, became the window to America for Soviet people keen on jazz.
This is the Voice of America Jazz Hour.
For 40 years, nearly till his death, Willis Conover was the unchangeable Jazz Hour host. He used to say that jazz is the sound of freedom. The sounds of jazz reached various parts of the world, uniting people of all cultures, traditions, and political views. In times of the Cold War, when jazz was forbidden in Russia, this music became the symbol of freedom and the US ambassador.
Built by Willis Conover, the Jazz Bridge uniting America and Russia is far more unique than the San Francisco Golden Bridge or New York Brooklyn Bridge. It was Conover who revealed the talent scale of such music masters as Duke Ellington, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, and Frank Sinatra to the world.
Today, jazz is flourishing as never before, carefully keeping former traditions up and at the same time boldly experimenting with the present. Several years ago, the 6th World Moscow Jazz Festival in memory of Willis Conover took place in Russia. Other jazz performances also happened on a large scale.
All cultures have been mixed up, still being the part of the timeline, so different from what it could be. Play a bit of jazz to me.